What's up, everybody? You guys made it to another episode of the Diddy trial, and y'all got here just in the nick of crime. Now, yesterday I talked about possibly doing one full day recap as opposed to two recaps, a midday and an end of day. And overwhelmingly, at least on YouTube, people said that they wanted one. It would be better, for them as well. And I think one person said that they preferred the two, but one, I think, makes it better, and it's going to be a little bit longer, but you'll get all of the information in one setting once a day. And my goal is going to be to try to do it around this time, give or take 30 minutes. That's going to be my goal moving forward for the next few weeks. Now, real quick, if you missed yesterday, everything that we do on this, there's a Sean Diddy Combs playlist on my YouTube. You can go there, follow it, and see these recaps. If you come in late, they're always recorded. Now, if you're coming in on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, wherever, make sure to hit that follow button. TikTok, please tap that screen. Let's get this to 10,000. That would be a huge help for me. And then let's just go ahead and get started. So here's a real quick recap, like super condensed recap of what happened yesterday. So for those of you who probably might not know this, the judge actually rebuked Sean Diddy Combs for trying to influence the jury. Basically, he was caught nodding at them during testimony, which might not sound like a big deal, but basically what he's doing is when somebody's giving testimony, he'll nod like, "Oh yeah, you should agree this. You should agree with this. This is true. This part right here is right," which is kind of trying to influence them. We also heard from a woman who's testifying under the name of Jane. Oh my gosh, Alice, thank you so much. I got to put this up here real quick. Alice, thank you. That is incredibly generous. I don't think I've ever gotten one like that. Thank you. Alice just gave me a phenomenal super chat, and I'm flabbergasted. Thank you is all I can say for that. I did not expect that. Very pleasantly surprised. Thank you. I lost my place of thought. Okay, yeah. So Jane is the one who took the stand, who is a pseudonym, and she told the jury that Combs pressured her to sleep with other men during their relationship, something that she says she eventually felt trapped into doing. Excuse me. And on the defense side, they tried to poke holes in the timeline of that alleged balcony assault using hotel receipts and tour dates to challenge the witness's story. So that's where things kind of stood at the end of the day yesterday. And now let's get into what's happening today. Before we do, though, there's a couple other things that happened around court, before court, that you guys might need to know about. I'm going to be showing y'all some pictures here in a moment on YouTube. If you're on Instagram, you can see it, but this is mainly for TikTok people, that if you want to jump over to YouTube, it's the same name, Just the Nick of Crime, that you haven't seen. I haven't seen these pictures before. They're evidence pictures, the Diddy box and a few other things that were there. So I'm about to talk about those in a second, and we'll talk about kind of the other things that we've learned about what Diddy was doing up to the time of his arrest. Now, Farrah just asked real quick on YouTube if I'm covering the Travis Decker story. I've been covering that pretty intensely. I've been talking about it every day on here at the beginning of the shows. There's just not really any updates right this moment, but I plan to do some more on it a little bit later today. So basically, what we learned from Jane is that Diddy continued to engage in these freak-off marathons even after Cassie filed her civil lawsuit against him, even though that was what it was about. And even as federal agents were preparing to arrest him, Jane told the jury that she was still participating in these encounters with male workers at his Miami area estate as recently as August of 24. Remember, he was arrested right after that, just weeks before Combs was arrested in Manhattan. She estimated there were about 5 such encounters between February 24 and his arrest, unlike the earlier hotel nights, which is what she calls the freak-offs, that frequently took place at luxury hotels. These encounters, the more recent ones, were at Combs's own estate. Jane described the atmosphere as the same type of debauchery she had previously testified about. Federal agents would go on to raid his home in Star Island, along with his LA residence in March of 24. Prosecutors told the jury that when Combs was arrested in New York last September, his hotel room was fully prepared for another freak-off, complete with substances, baby oil, and mood lighting, matching the same pattern of behavior Jane and other witnesses, including Cassie, have described. Now, I'm going to show you guys some of these things that they took out of this. Look real quick here. So, actually, before I do that, I forgot I put these in here. So this is not the exact courtroom. If you're on TikTok, you can't see this. You got to jump over. This is not the exact courtroom, but I figured a lot of people might want to see what this type of courtroom. This is pretty much identical to where he's having his trial right now. If you guys wanted to see what this looked like. So I saw these pictures. They kind of came up today. I was like, let me just show you guys kind of what they look like. So this is what it looks like kind of from the judge's area. You can see the monitor here and the monitors there for the witness stand to the right of that. And then you can kind of see the monitors on the jury stand. From here, you kind of have what the gallery looks like. The rooms aren't usually very big. And then you have, this is what a jury deliberation room looks like. So you can see they got the fridge, the microwave, so they can have snacks, bring food in, etc., while they deliberate. So that's what we have now. Real quick, I want to get, so this is some of the pictures, and I'll go back. This is some of the pictures that they took, some more evidence photos that we had not seen before of this substance right here. This is the Diddy box, this big green Diddy box that carried all sorts of treasures, as you can see inside of it. He's got all sorts of very interesting paraphernalia in there, right? That's for later today. So that's going to have, these are the evidence pictures that we hadn't seen before that kind of popped out, right? So yeah, that's what it looks like. A lot of y'all are saying you guys always want to know what a jury room looks like and stuff like that. Awesome. Appreciate you guys. I'm glad that you guys like this. So that being said, let's get back to this and talk about what kind of happened going into today. So Jane, who's been testifying under a pseudonym, is back on the stand starting this morning. Maureen Comey was continuing her questioning, and it looks like Jane's direct examination could stretch into Monday. The judge wants to make sure her testimony wraps up in time since she's scheduled to travel abroad on this upcoming Thursday, so a little bit less than a week from today. They're even planning longer trial days on Monday and Tuesday to make sure that they stay on track, because remember, the prosecutors had hoped to start questioning Jane on Wednesday, but she didn't actually take the stand until late Thursday. So at this point, her testimony is expected to meet or even exceed the 4 days that Cassie spent on the stand. And with the trial moving into its 5th week Monday, it sounds like those early predictions about wrapping up the government's case in 6 weeks might no longer be holding. It might go a little bit longer. So I was like, Carrie, if that's her real name, I'm going to delete your comment because we don't want her real name. She wants to remain anonymous, and on my platform, we're not gonna out her. That's what she wants to do. Who she is as a real human being and her real name is irrelevant. Let's try to be respectful of that. She's putting some of the most humiliating and most intimate details of her life out there. So while I know that there are other people who have no problem sharing who she is and information about her, I do. And that won't be done on my platform. So just I know you didn't know that, so just respectfully, I'm saying that. Somebody said the jury is sequestered. No, they're not. The jury is not sequestered, which blows my mind on this whole situation. So now let's start talking about adult stars, right? Adult film stars. So she told the jury, this is pretty explosive too, that Diddy began hiring male adult film stars for what she was calling the hotel nights. These aren't just escorts; these are adult film stars. Now these are, again, hotel nights is what she calls the freak offs. According to Jane, this began late 21 and early 22, and she started trying to take some control over which men she expected to sleep with during these encounters. Remember, she didn't want to do this, but she was trying to keep him happy. She testified that she reached out to 2 different male adult film performers after watching their films with Combs. She booked flights for one of the men who performed under the screen name Sly, flying him in from Atlanta to LA or New York for the sessions. Jane told the court that she paid for Sly between $2,000 and $4,000 per visit. Later, she began hiring a second performer identified as Antoine for additional hotel nights. Jane explained that these arrangements were part of a continuing dynamic in which Combs pressured her into these acts with other men as part of her fantasies. Now, this part, guys, when I heard this today, I was very disturbed by this. Nothing that you guys need to scroll away from, but it's just like, it was a very disturbing thing, okay? It's not like, but it's you'll see. So what came up also was allegedly, and I say allegedly, but they caught him on film talking about this, on camera talking about this, his alleged refusal to allow use of condoms during these encounters. She testified that she asked Combs on multiple occasions to allow the male escorts to use protection, but Combs would dismiss it or guilt her out of it, insisting, okay? According to Jane, he told her that he didn't want to see protection while he was watching. His tone was a bit condescending, and it made it clear she was expected to drop the subject. All right. So keep this in mind. He's making her sleep with escorts and adult film stars, people who sleep with more people than they can probably keep up with and count. And he won't let her use protection. He won't let her use protection. That is not caring about somebody's health and well-being. Okay. Like I said, this is some of the most disturbing testimony we kind of heard today. Prosecutors then presented a key piece of evidence to the jury, which is a video recording from one of the hotel nights capturing a conversation between James Combs and a man identified as Don. In the recording, Jane can be heard asking Don to wear protection. Combs then entered the room, intervened, and expressed his disapproval. At one point on the video, Jane is heard saying to Combs, "You promised," referencing a prior conversation in which she had asked him to allow condom use. On the recording, Combs ultimately says it's fine for the escort to use protection, but when the activity began, Jane testified that she was not allowed to wear them. When Maureen Comey asked James why she needed Combs' permission to have her partners wear protection, Jane appeared emotional on the stand, saying, "I'm still trying to process that." She further explained that she did not push harder for protection use because then Sean would be unhappy. She then explained that the video recording itself existed because Combs liked to film her and the male entertainers during these encounters. This was the first time in the trial that the jurors were shown any recorded footage from what Jane has described as hotel nights. This is the first time any footage of freak-offs, like actual footage, not just still images, has been shown. So again, that's pretty heavy, guys. That's some pretty heavy information right there, right? Like, to me, look, I'm not a woman, so I can't, but I would imagine that has to be incredibly, number one, invasive to be going through that to begin with, but two, to not allow them people who this is their work, they're workers of this, of doing that, being with a ton of people, and he cares. I don't care what anybody says with him. I mean, I don't think he cares about anybody but himself. You don't care about your partner, right? You don't care about your partner if you're having that happen, right? You don't care about their well-being. I mean, think of all the things that you could get from something like that, right? I mean, she could contract something that could ultimately end her life. So anyway, it said, yeah, somebody said such a violation. Absolutely. It's a massive violation. Massive violation. It's such a personal, intimate thing. Anyways, you all get it. Most of y'all in here, most of my followers are women. You all, I know, understand what I'm talking about. I don't want to go too graphic, but like I just it's very disturbing to me. And that's as a guy. So then it took an especially emotional turn when Jane began to break down on the stand, recounting a traumatic freak off that took place on her own birthday in 2023. According to Jane, she had flown to Miami to celebrate her birthday. By the way, this is her birthday. Keep this in mind as we talk about this, because you guys are going to be disturbed by this too. Okay, to celebrate her birthday with Sean, but the night quickly turned into yet another coerced session, this time involving not one, not two, but three male escorts in a row. Jane told the jury that she first traveled to Miami for her birthday. She had no expectations that a hotel night would take place. During dinner with Combs at their hotel, she said he made an offhand remark that alluded to the plan. For Jane, it was a gulp moment, as she called it, a sinking realization about what was going to happen. But she said she just had to accept it. Later that night, Combs gave her a necklace for her birthday. Not long after, an entertainer Jane had never met before arrived at the hotel room. She said, quote, "It was more of an invasive moment because it was my birthday and I didn't want to do this on my birthday." And she was crying through this testimony. And real quick, and you're going to find out why very shortly, Jane testifying against him does not benefit her at all. And you'll see why. I don't want to give it away as to why, but it does not benefit her at all, like personally, financially, etc., to do this. So she's not gaining anything, monetarily, physically, whatever, by having this testimony. In fact, she will probably lose things for doing it. Now, that being said, as the encounter began, Jane said she felt herself going through the motions in a detached, robotic state, similar to what Cassie testified, right? She said, quote, "I just remember at this point in our relationship, this had to become so routine that I was just in my same rhythm, just like robotically, just the same thing." And she was like sobbing at this point, okay? When Jane asked if protection could be used, Combs became visibly upset. According to her testimony, Combs gave her a dirty look and snapped, "You better not ask for an effing condom." Except he said the full word, right? Jane testified that she backed off the request because she didn't want to sour the mood and didn't want Combs to be unhappy with her. She said, "I just didn't want my partner to be unhappy with me." Seeing that Jane was distressed, Combs ultimately relented and handed the escort a protection, but Jane said he was very clearly displeased and visibly disinterested in the encounter after that. "It just made me feel really, really bad, and I just wanted it to be over." Prosecutor Maureen Comey twice offered Jane a break during this portion of her testimony, but Jane insisted on continuing despite the fact that she was through tears. So now let's go back to the 3 male escorts, right? So she further testified that this ordeal did not end with the first encounter. On that same night, he forced her to sleep with 3 different male escorts, one after another. Tearfully, she told the jury once again, "It was my birthday, and I just didn't want to do this on my birthday." Jane's testimony left the courtroom silent as she described how she was supposed to have a birthday celebration instead of becoming another deeply traumatizing hotel night that Sean Combs orchestrated. Now, as this is going on, let's talk about what Combs' reaction is real quick, because we actually got that today. So before they took a break on this, Combs showed a visible reaction in the courtroom as Jane gave her testimony about the hotel night in Miami. According to reporters in the courtroom, Combs was rubbing his face and eyes as Jane described how the night unfolded. She told the jury that although Combs initially gave her a bracelet and flowers on her birthday, he then invited 2 more men into the hotel room, forcing her to participate in these additional acts. Jane remained highly emotional throughout this portion of her testimony, crying openly, heaving at times as she struggled through the details. Maureen Comey offered her multiple opportunities to take a break, but Jane declined each time, choosing to press forward with her account. So good for her, the bravery, right? Somebody asked why stay with him, and I just want to say we've talked about this at length. That is what an abusive relationship looks like. You don't have the option to just leave. You can't just leave. He has so much control over her financially, physically, everything. You can't just leave. You can't just leave, right? So that's oversimplifying it, but then Jane had piercings, and apparently he had, as we heard from Cassie, he had strict expectations about her appearance on hotel nights. She told the jury that she always had to have outfits ready in advance and was expected to wear stripper heels for the entire duration of hotel nights. "I would just be always on point as far as my glam." Around 2022 or early 23, she testified that Combs told her he wanted her to get her nipples pierced, and according to Jane, Combs, then Chief of Staff Christina Coram, helped schedule the piercing appointment at a local location that Combs personally recommended. However, after about a year, Jane stopped wearing the piercings because they frequently snagged on her lingerie, causing bleeding, and then became infected. Jane testified that Combs grew impatient and eventually demanded that she start wearing them again. She recalled him snapping, saying, "Where are my piercings? This is the last time I see you when you don't have any piercings on." Yelling at her, snapping, demanding. She then provided additional testimony about her extensive substance use during these encounters, which I want to remind everybody, when we were talking about this yesterday, that she was not a substance user, okay? She was not a substance user until him, all right? She did not use things. It was not something that she did. But then she gets into extensive substance use, right? The substances were directly encouraged and supplied by Sean Combs. She testified that Sean would give her a lot of ecstasy to help her stay awake through the sessions, which could sometimes last anywhere from 18 hours to several days. 18 hours to several days of straight relations. Okay? I just can't imagine. Jane explained to the jury that taking the substances made it easier for her to disassociate from what was happening. "I didn't feel like she said, quote, "I didn't want to feel like it was too real." She added that she just wanted to make things easier. Jane recalled that on 2 occasions, she tried to get through a hotel night without taking anything. But the first time she said she made the decision because she was tired of doing that to her body, but the experience was unbearable. The fantasy of it all wasn't there. It just wasn't easy. It was too real that this was happening. Ultimately, she said, "I ended up asking for a pill, which Combs provided." She testified that after taking it, she felt better. The second attempt came in October of 23 when she said she was trying to encourage Combs to get sober. According to the testimony, Combs agreed to do a 30-day sobriety period, but wanted to have one last sobriety party first. That party took place at a hotel in Beverly Hills and lasted between 12 and 18 hours. Jane said that she abstained from substances during that night while Combs used both X and the white powdery stuff. When asked how she felt afterwards, she said, "I was just disgusted. I was repulsed. I was just so mad at myself for doing that. I just deeply regretted it." Continuing on with the substances, she also testified that when substances ran out during the hotel nights, he would simply call one of his employees to restock. he would call an assistant, a butler, or one of his security guards to bring more into the hotel room. It included the white powdery stuff, X, Molly, Xanax, and something Jane referred to as moke. I have no idea what moke is. If somebody in the comments want to enlighten me, let me know, because I don't know what that is. But yeah, they specifically named one man, Guido, who would deliver everything to Combs. I'm guessing, I wonder if Guido is one stop. Jane testified that Guido supplied X, Molly, Xanax, and the white powdery stuff. Maybe it's the pink stuff. That could be it. Maybe it's the pink stuff. The issue is M-Train. I think he would like it. M-Train said, "R him for 5 days straight without a break." I think he would like it. That's the thing. I think he would like it. Jane further testified that after these long sessions, which sometimes stretched up to 3 days, she would take Xanax in order to finally fall asleep. She said, "I just wanted to fall asleep. And it's really hard to fall asleep after you've been taking so many substances." Somebody said, yes, it is the pink stuff. Jane told the court that her routine was to take care of Combs first, put Sean asleep, and then take Xanax herself so that she could get some rest. So Combs puts her through this ordeal, right? Is high on everything in the world. Now, after he's forced her to do all of these things that she doesn't want to do, she now is responsible for putting this grown-ass man to sleep before she can try to put herself to sleep. All right? Just, whatever. In another disturbing revelation, Jane described how she was ordered to transport substances by plane at Combs' discretion or direction. Sorry, she testified that in 22, Combs instructed her to pick up substances from his security staff at his LA hotel and fly with them to Miami to meet him. Jane asked Combs' then chief of staff, KK, if this was a safe or legal. According to Jane, KK assured her, "It's fine. I do it all the time. Just put it in your checked-in luggage." Following these instructions, Jane flew to Miami with the substances, which she said were X. She testified that after arriving, she took X with Combs from that very package. A few weeks later, Combs once again asked Jane to transport more to Miami. Jane said KK again facilitated the handoff, telling her that the security would meet her outside Combs' home and deliver the package. Jane testified that she placed them in her luggage and then flew to Miami, where she again gave them to Combs, and they used the substances together. She then gets into how hotel nights began and her first experience choosing an escort. So she testified about how the hotel nights or freak-offs first began in her relationship with Sean Combs, and this started in 2021. She told the jury that during one night at Combs' house while they were taking substances and having relations, Combs introduced the idea as a fantasy. We've heard that before, right? We've heard that before. We've heard that with Cassie. He had a playbook that he did with this, basically. And I think this is why part of the reason why this testimony is so important to the prosecution. We would search specific things on websites, and in the middle of being high, he really just wanted me to fantasize or talk about other men, this type of role play about other men. He started saying, "I can make this fantasy a reality if you'd like to have it happen. I can make that happen." Jane said that wanting to please Combs, she went along with it. I said, "Okay," because it seemed he wanted that, and it was turning him on, and I was really into my partner, and so I just said, "Okay." Later that night, Combs arranged for an escort to join them. Within hours, Jane found herself in a Miami hotel room watching Combs' assistants setting up the space for the encounter. Jane recalled one of the first hotel nights in 21, when she was immediately repulsed by a man who arrived. She said she couldn't remember his name, but said he was sweaty and she felt hesitant. Jane testified that she tried to make it work, but gave Combs signals that she wasn't enjoying it. Eventually, she told Combs directly that she wasn't into it. In response, Combs laid her down on the bed and began sleeping with her himself. He then excused the man and told Jane he had another surprise, at which point another escort named Paul arrived. Jane also testified about another man, Michael, who Combs introduced her to for hotel nights. Jane said she liked Michael because he was respectful, and notably, he refused to be filmed, the first man who had done so. According to Jane, when Michael said he didn't want to be recorded, Combs actually turned the camera off. Jane told the jury that in the beginning, Combs always selected the men for these encounters, and she hated that they were strangers to her. Even though she didn't want to be having relations with other men at all, she eventually convinced herself that if it was going to happen, she should at least have some control over who was involved. So she said, quote, "I just said to myself, if we're going to be doing this, I should just choose who was going to be on my body." The first time she chose someone herself was in late 21 or early 22. She said that she and Combs were watching adult content together when they came across a performer with the stage name Sly. Afterwards, Combs was encouraging and flirtatious, asking if she thought she could get Sly. Jane reached out to Sly on Instagram and then began texting. Later, they FaceTimed while Jane was with Combs. After the call, Jane booked the flights for Sly to visit LA from Atlanta for a hotel night. She said both her and Sly were nervous when they met. It was her first time meeting an adult film star. The night with Sly was followed by the same typical hotel night routine. Afterwards, Jane began scheduling him frequently for sessions in LA, Miami, and New York. Sometimes Combs' travel agent would help arrange travel, and Combs always paid. Sly was paid between $2,000 and $4,000 per session, usually in cash, that Combs had on his person. Jane then testified that she chose Sly because she was familiar with me and because he felt like a safe option for me. Jane also testified that during these hotel nights, Combs would direct both her and male escorts, giving them explicit instructions on how to act and what to do. Even though Jane said she didn't enjoy sleeping with other men, she felt that she had to pretend otherwise. I wanted to put on a good show. She described responding on command to Combs' directions during the encounter. Somebody said they don't have sound. Turn your volume up. Jane also recalled a rare instance in 2023 where she rejected a man. I talked about this one. Was this the same one? Hold on real quick. Okay, here. She also talked about a rare instance where she rejected a man that he invited to their hotel room. At first, she tried making small talk with the man and allowed him to touch her, but soon realized this was definitely not something that I could fake doing. She pulled Combs aside privately and told him she couldn't go through it. Combs responded, "Are you sure? Maybe just a little bit," trying to push her into it. But when Jane and the man saw each other naked, she became repulsed by him and told Combs that she couldn't do it. Combs' demeanor was agitated. He just seemed almost a little confused by it. This wasn't like a typical thing for us to have a hiccup in the routine of the night. Ultimately, they excused the man and another escort was brought in so that the night could continue. Jane testified that there were two separate occasions during hotel nights where she became so overwhelmed that she cried. And that was something, by the way, that Combs did not tolerate. Okay. In one instance, Combs had promised her that the session would be quick. We'll just have a quick session. It'll be fast. Don't worry about it. We'll be fast. 18 hours. It lasted 18 hours. Because I remember it was like 3 rounds with this guy. And at the very end, I remember Sean saying he had to leave. By that point, she said she was extremely high, feeling lonely and sad, and she just wanted to go to sleep. I started crying and saying I was missing him. I went through all of that and was feeling terrible that he was going to leave me alone. Jane recalled breaking down in the suite at the Waldorf Beverly Hills hotels, and Combs reacted coldly. "Are you crying?" He was almost disgusted. He said when she looked at him, he looked like he was almost disgusted at her face for the fact that she was crying. The second time Jane cried was during a shower with Combs while she was still very high on X. When she began to cry, Combs snapped her, saying, "Don't do that right now. I'm effing high. I can't see this. I'm too high. You cannot be doing that now." She then went and talked about to the jury about the longest hotel nights that she could remember, lasted about 3.5 days. The shortest one was 12 hours. To stay awake during these marathons, Jane said she would take ecstasy, drink caffeine, and try to order some smoothies or protein shakes. She testified that she felt like she had to take the substances to get through these encounters. Breaking into tears again on the stand. It's hard for her. By the way, real quick, we were warned. We were warned at the beginning, well before Jane even took the stand, that she was an emotional wreck to talk about this. Like she's not still in a good place, but she's still testifying. Okay. So anyways, just wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. But she said, breaking into tears again, she said, because when I wouldn't, talking about taking the substances, when I wouldn't, it would feel too real. The atmosphere, I didn't want to feel like it was too real. I just wanted to kind of feel like it was just to make things easier. Then listen to this one. Listen to this one. Then she talked about an incident that took place during a vacation that she and Sean Combs took to Turks and Caicos. This trip, Combs flew also in his personal trainer and a regular freak-off participant named Paul. Jane testified that one particular hotel night on the vacation stood out to her because it was very painful. She said she became very sore during the encounter. At one point, Jane said she was in so much discomfort that Combs gave her more lubricant, but grew visibly annoyed at her lack of enthusiasm. Frustrated and upset, Jane said she finally snapped and told him, "You only brought me here to suck," and you can guess the rest of it, before storming out of the room. Combs reacted with anger. Jane testified that he furiously ran after her, yelling, "How can you make me look like that in front of Paul?" Like, seriously, what the? Anyways, I remember Sean was super disappointed. She said Combs told her that she owed Paul an apology, that I owed Paul an apology and I needed to say sorry to Paul. Jane said they ended up sleeping in separate rooms that night. Later, she messaged Paul to apologize, writing that she was sorry and appreciated him coming out to see her. Effing believable. Just unbelievable. Right? Crazy. Crazy. I'm reading somebody else's comments. She then testified about hotel nights where he would bring in that were frequent and spanned the entire course of their relationship from May 21 to October 23. She said they typically happened weekly or at least every other week in that period for like a 2.5-year period. She also clarified that she and Combs were on a break between October 23 and February 24. After they reconciled, the hotel nights continued, but were less frequent and took place only at Sean's Miami home. Now, remember, that's after his houses had been raided. So, right? Or right before. After. I think. I don't know. I'm having a moment on if it was 23 or 24. I think it was 24. We talked about it earlier. Doesn't matter. Jane recalled about 5 such encounters between February and it was in March of 24. Between February and Combs' arrest last September, with the last one occurring in August of 2024, right before a few weeks before he got arrested. When asked how many different men she had been forced to sleep with over the span of her relationship with Combs, she testified that she didn't even know. I don't even know. We're getting to their SOC Rebel. We're getting there. She also provided disturbing details about Combs directed her to interact with the men outside of the actual hotel night. She testified that Sean Combs ordered her to many times ask 2 of the regular male performers, Sly and Antoine, to send explicit photos and videos of their genitals. He wanted me to ask for nudes. He would say, get them to send you something or FaceTime them, and so they would. Jane also said that she would only FaceTime these men when Combs was present, that they would have sexting FaceTimes while Combs watched. Jane also testified that she would text the men explicit messages during times when she and Combs were alone, sleeping together, again, because that's what Combs wanted. When asked why she participated in this, Jane explained, because my partner wanted to see that, and I wanted to turn my partner on. Jurors were shown a series of explicit messages between Jane and Sly from November of 21 and March of 22. In one exchange, after Sly sent her an explicit image, Jane responded, looking good, with 2 smiley faces. Jane explained to the jury that her response seemed more bland because Combs was not with her at the time. When I'm in my sober mind receiving these messages, kind of not something that I like to see. At one point, Jane read a message aloud where she was arranging Sly's travel. After a FaceTime call with him, she texted, she's booking. I'll forward as soon as I get the details, referring to Combs' travel agent and talking about Sly's thing. I got a question because I think I know. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, right? No, for the most part, very few to no women want to receive those pics, right? That was for Sean. Sean wanted to see these pics because I don't know, and maybe some of y'all out there, and no judgment if that's the case, but I don't know a single woman who wants to get dick pics. I just don't. And I know for a fact that online you'll get them no matter whether you want them or not. So, that's just, yeah. So everybody in the chat saying no, at least here. Yeah. So anyways, yeah. And on Instagram, you're saying it too. And on all of the platforms, y'all are saying that. So yeah, nobody wants to see those, but he's making her do it. And like she said, she didn't want to see it. Men should learn that, but they don't care. They don't care. I'll tell you something. If you get an unsolicited picture, for the record, that is still SA, and you could report that if you wanted to F with them. Just report to the police. Say, I received this, and it's SA. You should report it to the police. I'm serious. Anyways, so moving on from that, he then also enlisted his personal trainer for the freak-offs. She testified that Paul, who was a regular participant in the freak-offs, had hotel nights involving him in Miami and LA. And even in Turks and Caicos, she understood that Paul was Combs' personal trainer outside of these encounters. Now, while this was going on, we have more information about what was said. So, or about how Diddy was acting. So at one point, Jane broke into sobs while talking about her attempt to do a hotel night without substances. This was back in October of 23, when she said she hoped Combs would finally get sober. As Jane cried, Combs was seen tapping his fingers against one of his legs, occasionally glancing toward the jury or towards his lawyers, avoiding looking directly at Jane. Jane testified that on that particular night, she was sleeping with 2 male escorts. She ended up vomiting Sean came in and I told him I'd just thrown up. According to Jane, Combs replied, "That's good. Then you'll feel better now that you've thrown up. So let's go because a guy is here," referring to a third escort who arrived. Okay, so listen, let's put that again. Let's hear that again. Okay. Um, she was so disgusted on this whole situation, high, whatever, that she literally vomits. She physically vomits, right? And he's like, "Good, you're gonna feel better now that you vomited. Let's go to this third guy." Like, like what? Like seriously, this is so. It's so unreal. You couldn't make this shit up. You can't make this up, right? It's insane. So then I think we talked about that. We did talk about that one already. Hold on. I think I scrolled down. Now let's talk about what happened after hotel nights. Jane also described what typically would happen after these brutal hotel nights. She testified that after leaving hotel, she and Combs would usually return to his house. Once there, Jane said that she would take care of him. I would make sure Sean was showered, and then I would cook for him, massage him, and put on one of his favorite shows. Like this dude, like she's mothering him. Like she's like this guy is like he it's so this relationship. This is a grown ass, incredibly successful man, very wealthy man, and he can't do this crap on his own. Like seriously. Anyway, so she would again make sure that he was like after they would finish these brutal nights, these things that she didn't want to do, that she would make it clear, I don't want to do it. They would come home after hours, 12 hours at a minimum, up to 3.5 days, and then she would still have to take care of him. She would have to make sure he was showered, cook for him, massage him, and put on one of his favorite shows. Unbelievable. My God. Jane began to choke up again, and she told the jury, then I would finally get to cuddle with him and sleep with him. But beneath that momentary comfort, Jane said that she was always fighting to suppress the sadness. I would really fight to block out just how sad I felt after. Then she also talked about, she gave some of her most powerful and emotional testimony yet about how desperate she had become in 23 to stop participating in these hotel nights and how Sean repeatedly dismissed or manipulated her pleas. Jane testified that although she didn't know how many times she had told Combs she wanted to stop, she often tried to express it through text message because when she brought it up in person or on the phone, he would overpower the conversation. He would get defensive, belittling, and dismissive. She explained that she frequently used the Notes app on her iPhone to collect her thoughts, calling it the only avenue to get my feelings out and write my thoughts in my feelings. Sometimes she said she would work up the courage to actually send those thoughts to Combs. One of those notes drafted in November of 23, but never sent, read, I'm sorry, I don't want to do substances for days and days and have you use me to fulfill your freaky wild desires in hotel rooms. Another note from November of 21, where she also read aloud, referencing feeling mistreated after a hotel night, where she saw on social media that Combs was spending quality time with another woman. She said, I felt mistreated that I was coming out there to do a hotel night. And when I leave, he's giving another woman this quality time that I've been begging for. Right? The quality time that I've been begging for. In that same message thread from 2021, Jane wrote, I need a breather and a break from you. This doesn't make me feel good at all. Your true intentions with me are in plain sight. Jane also read aloud a text that she sent to Combs in late 23, where she pleaded to return to how things were when they first started dating. Ever since I opened Pandora's box, I've never been able to close it. Is what she wrote in that message. She went on to say in that message that she was disgusted with herself for what the hotel nights had become. I feel it's the only reason you have me around and why you pay for the house. I don't want to feel obligated to perform these nights for you. Jane testified that by that point, she absolutely did feel obligated, terrified that Combs would stop paying her rent if she refused. She confirmed again or in court that Combs was paying her rent, still paying her rent to this day, right now, and had already tied financial support to her participation in the hotel nights. His response to a heartfelt plea was basically, girl, stop. Now, real quick before we go further, I want to address them because I know people are going to come in here. They're going to see this later and they're going to say in the comments, oh, he's paying for her stuff, so that's why she's doing it. You know, whatever. She's doing it for money. That's why she's with him. And no, that's not necessarily the case. If you know the full story, which we talked about yesterday, I don't know who Jane is. Okay. I don't plan to go looking up her, but based on what I'm reading, the way she speaks, the way she taught, well, it's the same thing, speaks, in the way that kind of we're hearing the descriptions, I think that Jane is very young. I think that she's very young. I know that she's got, I think, 2 kids, but I think she's pretty young. I could be wrong on that, and if I am, then I'm okay with that. But that's kind of the level of maturity that I'm kind of picking up on this, and that's not a bad thing. That's not blaming her, but it's saying that when you're in that situation, you don't necessarily know who you are, and basically, Sean forced her to move out from where she lived out to California, paid for it, and she did so because she wanted to be with him, right? And then all of this stuff starts, and now she's stuck because she's out in California. He's all she's got, and he's very powerful, and he's threatening, and he's violent, right? So I just kind of want to address that because I know inevitably there will be a man that comes in here and listens to this and says something like that, right? I know that that's going to happen. See what you guys are saying. Somebody's saying she's 38, she's 37, it doesn't matter. Okay, so she's not that young. Okay, so I know she had 2 kids. I'm trying to read some of y'all's comments here. All right, so she's not that young. No, they're not his kids. They're not his kids. Just to clarify. So then we go back. Let's go back to that session that we talked about on her birthday back in I think it was the one in 23. Yeah. After her birthday in February 23, the night in Miami where Combs forced her to sleep with 3 male escorts back to back, she texted him, says, "Why do you lie to me?" She explained in court that after subjecting her to that hotel night in particular, Combs embarked on a private vacation with another woman, right? He calls her out to Miami saying, "We're going to celebrate your birthday," coerces her into a freak off. Yeah, I know. So real quick, just to clarify. Yeah, her age doesn't matter. It's mystery. I don't care if she's 19. I don't care if she's 90. Nobody should be treated like that. Nobody. Nobody. Ever. Nobody deserves to be treated like that. It's inhuman. It's disgusting. But yeah, so he flies her out to Miami, forces her into this freak off, which she didn't want to do, begged that not do it because it was her birthday. And still does it. And so then she says, "Why do you lie to me?" Because then immediately after all of that, he goes on vacation with another woman. She said, "It broke my heart because I just finished spending my birthday with these guys, sleeping with me. And then for my partner to just leave and do such a romantic gesture for someone else." When Jane confronted Combs via text about his lies, he responded, "Because I didn't feel like telling you what I was doing with her. You had your birthday and I didn't tell her what I was doing with you." So I guess that makes it okay. I didn't feel like telling you what I was doing with this other woman, and I didn't feel like telling her what I was doing with you. Doesn't matter. That was his response to that. He then texted back and said, "It really feels like you used me to get off and then go away for a week." In another message from the same exchange, she wrote, "I'd like to get off the hamster wheel and do something different with you. I deserve it too." And part of that's because he's been promising her vacations for years, but all we do is hotels, and it's sad, and it's not fair to me. She also wrote, "I didn't want to do all of that on my birthday. You knew how tired I was." Combs eventually responded, said, "Let's be friends because I can't take this part for real. I'm done with you comparing yourself to someone else. I treat you good, and if you don't feel so, let's just be friends. I'm tired of these long texts telling me what I'm doing wrong." That was his response. This is his response to somebody who he's supposed to be his partner, that he's romantically involved with, coming to him with an issue in their relationship. And that's how he responds. I'm going to read it to you guys again. "Let's be friends because I can't take this part for real. I'm done with you comparing yourself to someone else. I treat you good. If you don't feel so, let's just be friends. I'm tired of these long texts telling me what I'm doing wrong." That is so defensive. Instead of saying, "Hey, let's talk about this a little bit more. Why do you feel this way? This is why I like this." But we know that that's not who he is. We know that's not who he is. But it's just dismissing her. It's such classic narcissistic abuse. She testified that toward the end of their relationship in 24, which, by the way, she was with him until he was arrested. She claimed that he never. She testified that toward the end of the relationship in 24, Combs claimed he never knew she didn't want to participate in the hotel nights. And at first, she believed him. But later, she reviewed her old messages and realized that she had been expressing those same feelings since 2021. She had said the same things over and over and over again. Then prosecutors played a voice note that Combs had sent to Jane after she confronted him about posting images with another woman on social media. In the recording, Combs could be heard in an angry and defensive tone. I'm going to read this. I'm going to see what I can do for social media, and I'll try to Okay. She asked me if she could work out with me. Last time you gonna be effing with me. I'm a human being. I'm not going back. I'm not going to lock up. I'm not going to lock. Okay, so hold on. It's kind of hard to read how he talks. It's okay. This is what Combs is saying. Let me start this again. She asked me if she could work out with me. Last time you gonna be effing with me. I'm a human being. I'm not going to lock me up in a room. I don't have a bunch of guy friends. She came over to work out. I'm not going to be explaining. I can do whatever the F I want. I've told you more than one time, you do this, you're effing nuts. Be sad, go crazy, whatever the F you're going to do. I'm effing working out. That was his response in a voice note. That was his response in a voice note. This is somebody who just wanted this guy that she was seeing to be exclusive with her. That's all she wanted. That's all she wanted. Right? Anyways, now let's talk about her health. Because as I'm sure a lot of you women can imagine that doing what she's been doing the way that she's been doing it without protection for 12, 18 hours, 36 hours, 40 something hours, or 72 hours. Well, 24. Yeah. More than that, right? You can imagine. So she talks about the serious physical toll and repeated the hotel nights took on her body. She again was fighting back tears, describing the lingering pain and infection she suffered as a result of the abuse. Jane told the jury that her shoulders and back would hurt during every hotel night because she was forced to maintain certain positions for many hours at a time, because that's what her partner wanted to see. She also testified that she frequently developed UTIs and yeast infections as a result of the encounters. She said she had to take antibiotics for the UTIs and sometimes inform Combs when she was sick. Bear in mind, Cassie also testified that she had to take medication for UTIs because of the same exact type of stuff happening, right? And it got to a point where it no longer worked. The antibiotics no longer worked on her. Okay? No longer worked on her. And that was what Cassie was saying. There are many cases, Jane said, that she was made to participate in new hotel nights before she fully had recovered from an infection. So she could be still on the mend, trying to recover, being painful down there. And he would still force her, knowing this, to participate. She said, quote, there were times when I couldn't fully recover from an infection before we had another hotel night. She then was crying, wiping away tears as she described the constant back pain, pelvic soreness, and frequent infections that she endured. Her testimony mirrored earlier statements from Cassie, who testified that she suffered from UTIs. Forgot I put that in there. Sorry, guys. And other physical trauma after being forced into marathons with Combs and workers. Both women told the jury that they were expected to continue participating in these encounters, even when they had not yet recovered from these injuries or infections. She then testified that just a few months after the first session, she told Sean that she no longer wanted to participate in these sessions with male escorts, but every time she raised the issue, he would brush it off and the hotel nights would continue. Not long after, Combs began paying Jane's rent, which she said made her feel increasingly obligated to continue participating in the encounters. It really started to stem from the fact that my partner was paying my rent. She told the jury that Combs made that financial control very clear. He would say things like, if you want to break up, that's fine. You need 3 more months in the house because I'm not about to be paying for a woman's rent that I'm not even seeing. Then, in 2023, after their trip to Turks and Caicos, she and Combs entered into what he called a love contract. All right? Love contract. Under the agreement, Combs asked Jane what she wanted as a monthly allowance, and they settled on $10,000 a month, which Jane used to pay rent on a new, larger home. Jane then agreed to a 2-year contract because it matched the time he had already spent in their relationship. She moved into the new house in April of 23, and Combs began paying $10,000 a month rent. Maureen Comey asked, who's paying your rent now? Sean. Bill's paying her rent today. She also, which is what I'm saying, she has everything to lose by doing this testimony. She also testified that Combs paid for her to get veneers around that same time because he didn't like her teeth. He didn't like her teeth, so he forced her to get veneers. In text shown to the jury between April and August of 23, when the pair were seeing each other frequently, always for hotel nights, she messaged him complaining that she hadn't seen him. Jane clarified to the jury that she meant she hadn't seen him alone outside of a hotel room. Combs responded with, well, get over it, please. Look at the roof over your head and that pretty smile. I don't want to do anything if that's still an issue. Tell her to get over it. She expresses her concerns. Get over it. Look at what I'm paying for you over your head. Look at the smile that you have now that I wanted, even though you didn't ask for it. Anyways. Now, ladies who have been in an abusive relationship, what does your abuser always promise to do? This is not a rhetorical question. You can answer. What does your abuser promise to do? All right, you guys got it. That's right. Change. Get better. Right? So in early 2023, she briefly stopped communicating with Combs after learning he had taken another woman on a trip. He would call me a lot, text me a lot, have other people message me. Eventually, she gave in, and Combs invited her to Miami, promising a night of debauchery and fun. I just want us, Combs replied. Cool. She gave him the cold shoulder, and so he comes running, right? Because now he's not in control. That's what happens. So he's doing what he can to get her back. She says, I just want us. He said, cool. They went to dinner in Miami. Before heading to the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, she testified that in the middle of her high, while they were watching adult content, he asked her if she wanted to see Don, one of the male escorts. Now, sorry, I forgot I meant this whole part. He promised to change. He promised that this would stop. That we won't do this anymore. It will just be us. First time back. Don. You want to see Don? He said, okay. I've grown accustomed to the rhythm of the thing. I could tell it would make him happy. Promised he would change. Immediately doesn't. He's there physically with her. Let's call Don. Right? They never change, guys. As Elizabeth said, they never change. So then we talked about this one. See if there's anything else here that you need to know. We talked about all of that. So, okay, so this is the birthday thing again, but I just accidentally repeated it. It's a lot, y'all. It's a lot. They're expecting next week it to go a little bit over the court sessions and things like that because of this entire situation. And crazy. Now, here's feedback that I'd like from you guys. First of all, if you were watching on Insta, Facebook, or TikTok, and you came in late and you want to see this, there is a Sean Diddy Combs playlist. This is recorded. You can go back and watch it. Okay. This is the full day recap. As a lot of y'all know, I've been doing 2 midday and end of day. This is the full day. This was a lot of information being thrown at you. A lot of information being thrown at you. And I need to change this back to this. There we go. Let me know how you guys feel about it. Do you guys want me to keep doing it? This was a little bit longer. Let me know how you guys feel about it. If you want me to keep doing it this way, I feel like it's a little better you have it all in one thing. But here's the thing. They expect direct testimony to come from Jane all the way through probably the end of Monday, right? So we had yesterday, starting in the, almost half the day yesterday, all of today, all of tomorrow, plus Monday, plus you have cross, and then you have redirect, right? So they're trying to get her out by Thursday, but I think we're going to have for the majority of the week. And I feel like her testimony is just as powerful as Cassie's, and it does a very good job of establishing this pattern, right? Because it is copy and paste several years later, many 20 years later, almost. It is a copy and paste of what he did to Cassie, up to and including the same websites. The same place where he got the escorts for Cassie, the same place he's getting them for Jane. You guys are like the long ones. Okay, you guys like the long ones. That's what we're getting back. So this is part of building that pattern, right? Somebody asked me if I think he's guilty. Here's what I will answer to you on that. Do I think he's guilty of being an asshole? Absolutely. Do I think he's guilty of domestic violence? And, absolutely. Do I think he's guilty of trafficking? Well, you're flying workers over for the purpose of making them sleep with other people who don't want to sleep with them. That's trafficking by definition. Um, and I feel like we are starting to have very strong building blocks for that Reiko case. So that's my answer to that. The answer is yes. I think that he's guilty. I think that we've heard testimony where he would use money from Bad Boy. He would pay people off straight from Bad Boy Entertainment, which is his company, using it as a front to run these illicit activities. He would pay people from either cash that came from it or even settlements. There was a letter that we talked about the other day that was written on, a contract or whatever over the hotel footage where he paid somebody to make that footage disappear. And that was done. The agreement was done on Bad Boy letterhead, right? Somebody asked, how do I feel about the last come out days? I think about Rent. I don't think anything of it. Like I said earlier, he flew her out there. He made her move to LA. And so part of that was he needed to pay her rent. She left everything to come be with him, and this is how he treats her. Do I think he'll continue to pay her rent? Probably not after this. So that's what I was saying. She has everything to lose with this. She has everything to lose and nothing to gain. But I'm very interested to see what comes out next week. This testimony, I told you guys with the whole Jane thing, what we knew coming up even a few weeks ago, that this was going to be powerful testimony, and it is 100% powerful, even more so than I think I could have imagined. So, we're getting close to the RICO case. You remember, you still have at least 3 weeks left on this. Okay. We're ending week 4, right? So there was 2 to 3 weeks left on this. They said between 6 and 8. So yeah, it's coming together, guys. It takes time to build for a case like this. This is a big case, big name, and everything has to be buttoned up. And I think that prosecution personally is doing a much better job than defense on this. His $10 million defense team, I thought I'd be more impressed. So I'm not, though. I'm not. Anyways, that's what we got. Again, hit that follow button if you don't. It's something free that you can do that helps my account no matter what platform. I'm especially trying to really grow Insta and YouTube. So if you are watching there and this is your first time, please follow that button so you don't miss these. I'm going to try to do these next week around the same time. If this time works well or if you're here, I'm guessing it does. So we can kind of try to keep these consistent for y'all. And again, of course, these are saved on YouTube, so you can go back and watch them later if you come in late or miss them for whatever reason. I'm in Central Time, so about 4:30, 5 o'clock Central Time. My goal. That said, y'all, have a great rest of the evening and a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday. Bye, y'all.